I will also restore peace through strength, and I will prevent World War III from happening. Under Trump, we will have no more wars.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history.
Iran is striking a US-run military base in Qatar.
President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
The fighting continues in the Middle East this morning as Iran vows to retaliate against American attacks over the weekend. There are also concerns of an oil shortage.
The United States and its people are on high alert today after Iran made a chilling threat to unleash sleeper cells in retaliation to the attack by America on Iran's nuclear sites.
من هدف مشروع ایران هستند. آمریکا با این اقدامی که انجام داد علیه ایران و حریم هوایی ایران را شکست و جنایت علیه ایران انجام داد دیگه جایی در منطقه غرب آسیا نداره. آقای رئیس جمهور آمریکا شما شروع کردید و ما تمومش خواهیم کرد.
The US act of aggression against Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities constitutes not only a flagrant breach of the UN Charter, especially the prohibition of the use of force under Article 2, Paragraph 4, and the obligation to respect the state's territorial integrity and sovereignty, but also a violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2231.
Washington claims to have set back the Iranian nuclear program by years, using new bunker-busting bombs for the first time, hitting enrichment facilities in Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Experts argue it's too early to gauge that, as official damage assessments are still underway. But Iranian officials say uranium at these sites was already moved.
Мы считаем, что Иран имеет право на программы использования атомных ядерных технологий в мирных целях.
Oh, come on, Dan. It was just a limited strike. No one's talking about regime change here. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be regime change? Make Iran great again. But they've been enriching uranium. Don't you know they're close to making a nuke? We simply cannot allow that to happen. Wait. Where have I heard this before?
The deadline for attaining this goal is getting extremely close. And Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems that they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States within 15 years. By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb. The foremost sponsor of global terrorism could be weeks away from having enough enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons. That would place a militant Islamic terror regime weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs. If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months.
We have yet to provide any evidence of this, but just trust us, bro. They're working on it. A full payload of bombs was just dropped on the primary site Fordow. Now is the time for peace. I said we peaceful now. I hate to say I told you so, but I freaking told so. But this had to be done, Dan. How are you not happy about this? How thrilled are you that this happened? Anyone who is thrilled about this needs to examine themselves and do a little soul searching. People are dead, and now many more people are in danger. State Department issues worldwide caution for U.S. citizens after U.S. strikes on Iran. And if you guys thought that was bad, check out this post from Billboard Chris. Amazing. I figured he was deceiving everyone. That's how it's done. Never let your enemy know what you're doing. To which I replied, hooray for war? Dude, this is WMD's 2.0. Stick to your lane. To which he replied, it was nice working with you a little in the past, Dan, but you're just a little bit too crazy for me. See ya. And I'm blocked. After having his back multiple times and after conducting a lot of research into Constable Frederick Buckman, who was investigated following PFT's viral videos of misconduct, the man who claims to have one conversation at a time can't handle a little bit of truth from little old me. As former MP Randy Hillier said, this is bizarre behavior. I block people who are coarse, rude, and foul, but not because they respectfully disagree with my views. We cannot learn and improve our knowledge without respectful debate, discussion, and dissent. But that's not what these newbies want, as was just proven by Shillboard Chris. But Dan, you don't know what you're talking about on this issue. It's not like you've been consistently warning people about this for nearly a decade and a half, right? The global elite want a complete and total takeover of the Middle East. Just look at the amount of regime changes we've seen in just the past 10 years. So the fear-mongering about Iran having a nuclear weapon is an excuse to go in and implement a regime change. Just look at what happened with Iraq nearly 9 years ago. Remember when we were told that Saddam Hussein was in possession of weapons of mass destruction? Well, we all soon found out that that was entirely untrue, yet the Iraqi regime had already been completely toppled.
The Iraqi regime possesses biological and chemical weapons.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
We cannot wait for the final proof, the smoking gun, that could come in the form of a mushroom cloud.
And we believe he has, in fact, reconstituted nuclear weapons.
But on the specific issue of weapons of mass destruction, it's going to take time.
I believe that we will find the truth, and the truth is he was developing a program for weapons of mass destruction. The main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't, but he had the capacity to make weapons of mass destruction. But I also talked about the human suffering in Iraq. I like to tell people when the final history is written on Iraq, it'll look like just a comma. The Iranian nuclear issue is a problem and continues to be a problem that must be addressed by the international community.
There should be no doubt. The United States and the international community are determined to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons.
The United States of America is willing, in the final analysis, if necessary, to take military action to keep Iran from having a nuclear weapon.
There's a special case here with Iran, a country that is trying to get a nuclear weapon and that is saying that it believes in wiping another country off the map.
Iran continues its efforts to obtain nuclear weapons. A nuclear Iran would pose a direct threat to the Middle East and to the entire world.
So now we have the nations of England, along with Israel and America, who want to invade and attack Iran. However, they know that a preemptive strike would not get the people behind their war of aggression. So some of the steps that are currently being taken are to harass and intimidate Iran in an effort to back them up into a corner so that they will be provoked to attack first. There are currently EU foreign ministers threatening to block oil exports, which is already provoking the Iranians to respond by threatening to close down the Strait of Hormuz.
Last month, we joined with our partners at the UN Security Council to pass the toughest and most comprehensive multilateral sanctions that the Iranian government has ever faced. The European Union is moving ahead with additional strong measures against Iran's financial, banking, insurance, transportation, and energy sectors, as well as Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Other countries, like Canada, have indicated they will also be taking action. In other words, we are ratcheting up the pressure on the Iranian government for its failure to meet its obligations.
If their intimidation tactics fail and Iran does not go for the bait, we certainly could see a false flag attack, which would be blamed on Iran in order to provide the excuse for an invasion and a complete takeover by the global elite. Iran is by no means a shining beacon of light. They have their problems and their issues, just like just about any government in the world does. But the global elite are manipulating the situation with Iran in order to get the people in the West behind their war in the name of peace and security. So in the coming weeks and months, let's not get caught up in all the war propaganda similar to what we've seen in Iraq, and be sure to take what the mainstream media has to say about this with a grain of salt. All right, folks, most of our viewers, I would think at this stage in the game, will know that whatever Donald Trump is doing at this point is being allowed to happen. He didn't just slip by the oligarchs because of his charm and his money and his reality TV fame. We've called Donald Trump out as a puppet before, and I've received tons of backlash for this. And just like in Obama's first few months in office, I was told to just hold back. People were saying, hang on here, Dan, let's just wait and give the guy a chance. Let's see how he governs. Well, folks, I'm looking at what's going on in America, and so far the country is more divided than I've ever seen it. I mean, Americans have completely embraced this false left-right paradigm, and it's pinning everyone against each other to the point of all-out violence. And if that wasn't reason enough, now we have one more reason to doubt Donald Trump's integrity. Guys, he may be outside of the Bush-Clinton neocon establishment, but he is still a part of this new world order system, whether he realizes this or not. He's essentially the Barack Obama of the Republicans, just a useful celebrity in order to make you think that your voice matters. And everything from the media backlash to even his own members of his party denouncing him was all a part of this deception. They had to make him look like a true populist outsider, a deception that even some of the alternative media outlets have completely fallen for. And I want to be wrong about this. I mean, believe me, I want Trump to be legitimately the face of a freedom movement that's going to undo all the damage of the American empire. But that's not how things are. We're not even a full month into his office here, and already Trump is showing his true colors. His hostility towards Iran is exactly what we would have expected with Clinton at the helm. Iran and the American-friendly Saudis are in competition with each other over oil. So the Saudis have every reason to support a war with Iran. And so does Israel, another terror-sponsoring nation that just wants to see Iran back under the reins of U.S. puppets. And that is the crux of this issue, folks. Regardless of what you might think about Trump's domestic policies or how he's getting things done by signing executive orders, a problem, I might remind you, for freedom lovers back when Bush and Obama was doing it, but not so much an issue anymore for some reason. But regardless of how you might feel about him, Trump is still pushing the same agenda as his predecessors. And that is that Iran is a threat and it should be attacked, and Saudi Arabia and Israel are allies, and there's no debating it. And look at this. The Trump administration is watching Russia and is very troubled about what is happening in Ukraine. Guys, I think it's safe to say at this point, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. There is a great deception taking place as the masses in the West are being manipulated to going along with a war intended to overthrow the Iranian regime and to install a puppet leader, one whose strings can be pulled in any direction that the U.S. or their ally Israel desires. In what is now being described as the most direct confrontation between Israel and Iran in decades, Israel fired upon Syrian and Iranian forces late at night under the cover of darkness. Israel and Iran have been waging what the New York Times calls a shadow war in Syria for months, as Israel has continued to launch multiple airstrikes, often resulting in casualties for Syrian and Iranian soldiers. This attack came just days after Israel called up reserve troops to the Golan Heights, a disputed border region where the battle for oil routes is ongoing. I exposed this fact over 1 year ago in my video titled Breaking Syrian War and the Battle for Golan Heights, Genie Oil and Gas Exposed, where I warned what the agenda is, and it's now coming to fruition. This recent attack came less than 2 days after President Trump announced his decision to pull the US out of the Iran deal. Trump said that the US would swiftly reimpose economic sanctions on Iran that had been lifted following the 2015 agreement, despite the fact that the Iranian regime has not aggressed against anyone in over 100 years. In fact, the Iranians claim that the Israeli attack was a false flag attack, while Iran maintains that last night's skirmish between the Israeli Defense Force and Syrian army forces was a false flag and that the IDF struck first, continuing its pattern of airstrikes and other military assaults in Syria. The IDF boasted Thursday morning that Tehran will need a lot of time to recover from the most extensive Israeli attack in Syria since 1974. And though the Israeli Defense Forces say it's not seeking further escalation, the IDF says that the Syrian regime will be held accountable for everything happening in its territory and has warned against any retaliatory attack. They must understand that if it rains here, it will pour there, said Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman. The bottom line is, this is not looking good for the Middle East, as the CIA has been working to overthrow Syria and Iran for decades now, and with the help of their ally Israel, the war drums are now beating louder than ever. And those of us who can see right through their agenda must speak out and expose this plan now more than ever before it's too late. They lied about Iraq, they lied about Libya, they've lied about Afghanistan, Syria, and now Iran. So in the name of truth, please share this video, and let's help the masses in the West come to the realization that the United States, along with their ally Israel, are the #1 aggressors here who need to be stopped.
Never! Ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer the consequences, the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before. We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious!
Easy there, big fella. Look, before we get our panties all up in a knot here, let's rationally think about why Iran would be mad in the first place. Well, there was that recent decision by Trump to withdraw from Obama's landmark nuclear deal with Iran. And then Trump did put pressure on the US's allies to completely cut off imports of Iranian crude oil. Oh, and he did take that even further by suggesting that those who failed to comply with America's requests would suffer secondary United States sanctions. So, yeah, it looks like Iran does have a legit cause for concern here. And let me reiterate, as I have many times, that I'm not saying that the Iranian regime is some sort of shining beacon of light here. They have their problems just like every government in the world has their problems. But what I am saying is that we are being manipulated here in the West into going along with a war with Iran. We've seen this play out time and time again in the Middle East. Obama's nuclear deal with the Iranians will lead to a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. It has to be stopped. No, sir, what needs to be stopped is you. Seeing how Trump has flip-flopped on his Iranian rhetoric over the years has made it more clear to me now than ever that Trump isn't playing sixth-dimensional chess here. He's being played himself by the deep state who control his puppet strings. And it's time the American people snap out of their delusion and they stop looking to the government to solve the problems that were caused by the government. As the war drums surrounding Iran continue to beat louder and louder, we must do everything in our power right now to share this information that people are simply not getting from the mainstream news outlets. For a man who uses social media to announce his war hawk intentions, these tweets in particular didn't exactly age well. From November of 2011, in order to get elected, Barack Obama will start a war with Iran. Or this one from October of 2012. Don't let Obama play the Iran card in order to start a war in order to get elected. Be careful, Republicans. Followed by this one in September of 2013. Remember what I previously said. Obama will someday attack Iran in order to show how tough he is. And of course, who could forget this one from November of 2013? Remember that I predicted a long time ago that President Obama will attack Iran because of his inability to negotiate properly. Not skilled. Well, it seems that the same things can now be said about this particular president, as the Warhawks are now beating the drums louder and louder as they close in on Iran. Alright, so yesterday I noticed on Twitter that the trending topics were hashtag World War III, hashtag WW3, hashtag Iran War, hashtag Soleimani, hashtag Franz Ferdinand. That's a pretty scary combination of trending hashtags that proves everyone is on edge right now about the escalating tensions in the Middle East, as the war drums are now beating louder and louder. So where did all this start? Well, the plan for a war with Iran can be traced back for decades, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to chronologically look at this by starting with the assassination of Iran's second most important person, Qasem Soleimani. Top Iranian military leader killed in Baghdad airstrike ordered by Donald Trump. Iran said its arch-enemy, the United States, bore responsibility for the consequences after killing one of its top commanders, Qasem Soleimani, in an airstrike Friday on Baghdad airport. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, warned of severe revenge for the criminals who bloodied their foul hands with his blood, and vowed that, God willing, his work and his path will not be stopped. Hours after the attack was announced, President Trump tweeted a simple image of the American flag. And by the way, they're not kidding when they say simple. It's a low-res, highly pixelated, blurry image of the flag. But I digress. The Revolutionary Guards confirmed the commander of its Quds force had been killed by US forces in Baghdad, with Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif slamming the move as foolish and denouncing it as a dangerous escalation. In response to this, Iran's head made the following statements. Iran has vowed to retaliate against a US airstrike which took out one of its top generals, calling the move America's biggest mistake in West Asia, and threatening severe vengeance. The article goes on to say, these criminals will face severe vengeance in the right place and time, it added. In this Washington Post article, it says, in major escalation, American strike kills top Iranian commander in Baghdad. Iran confirmed the death of one of its most active military figures and vowed revenge against the United States. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah, said in a statement Friday that Soleimani's death was bitter, but that the final victory will make life more bitter for the murderers and criminals. In response to that, the Pentagon announced that it is going to begin to take the proper steps necessary to protect America. All the current major British, American, and Russian news outlets are currently saying, with almost certainty, that Iran will strike back with major force. And so here we are with an extremely volatile situation that could literally spark World War III at any given moment. Because if we do see back and forth attacks between the US and Iran, Russia is going to step in on behalf of Iran, which will then mean that NATO will step up and begin to mobilize its troops, which could result in reserve troops being deployed, and there you have it, the start of World War III. By the way, here's a New York Times article from 1998 that I think you might find quite interesting. Impeachment vote in-house delayed as Clinton launches Iraq airstrike, citing military need to move swiftly. It's almost like they're following a script, which should reveal to you the fact that Trump is just taking orders from the military-industrial complex, now doing everything that he warned Obama would do. There's this tweet from November of 2011. In order to get elected, Barack Obama will start a war with Iran. Or this one from 2012. Now that Obama's poll numbers are in tailspin, watch for him to launch a strike in Libya or Iran. He is desperate. Or this one. Polls are starting to look really bad for Obama. Looks like he'll have to start a war or major conflict to win. Don't put it past him. And then just 5 days later, he said, don't let Obama play the Iran card in order to start a war in order to get elected. Be careful, Republicans. And finally, I predict that President Obama will at some point attack Iran in order to save face. Now, having said all of that, I have something else for you to consider when looking into all of this. Check this out. Jeffrey Epstein's madame allegedly hiding in Israel. Prince Andrew's pimp pal Ghislaine Maxwell being hidden in safe houses in UK and Israel to avoid Epstein scandal. Ghislaine Maxwell's powerful contacts protecting her in safe houses. And finally, Jeffrey Epstein's socialite Madame Ghislaine Maxwell is being hidden from the FBI in a series of safe houses because of the information she has on powerful people. My friends, we know Donald Trump is an old friend of this Mossad agent. So is it possible that he actually didn't want to attack Iran, but the Israelis entrapped him years ago with Maxwell and Epstein, with all of that purposefully resurfacing now in an attempt to keep Trump in line with the plan to attack Iran? It's tough to say, but my inkling, due to decades of research into these topics, leads me to believe that Trump is just a puppet head figure who is being completely controlled by powerful interests who have been manipulating US politics for half a century now. There is a plan for a war with Iran. It's been on the table for decades, and it didn't happen with Obama, so now they're trying it with Trump. Again, I hate to say I told you so, but I freaking told so. If you voted for Trump, you're complicit in the war. Kamala would have done the same thing. You've been duped by a false left-right paradigm to accept war, and everyone who voted needs to stop the mental gymnastics and face the reality of the situation. Folks, this is far from over. Trump has already pivoted to mulling regime change in Iran with this latest post, and as I've shown you, that has been the goal all along. So I'm going to continue to do everything I can to wake people up to the reality of this situation. I don't care if I get blocked, and I don't care if I lose subscribers. I care about exposing corruption in high places, and if you do as well, please share this video far and wide, because it's crunch time, folks. The gloves are off now in the Middle East, and I can guarantee you we've got big problems coming for us in the West. And it's all because of this reckless, unprovoked provocation. My friends, if you appreciate my efforts to consistently bring you this information for nearly 2 decades now, please consider making a contribution at pressfortruth.ca/donate. You can check that top link in the description below. So that's all for today, my friends. Please pray for peace, pray for de-escalation, and never stop pressing for truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.